hear people say the PESO model hasn't evolved to meet AI. And every time I do, I think, have you even bothered to Google PESO model? Or, I don't know, ask your AI tool of choice about it? Of course, I already know the answer is no, because if they did one of those things before pontificating, they wouldn't proceed. Alas, I'm just a little girl who doesn't know what I'm doing. Even without pontificating online about how it hasn't evolved, many marketers still think of PESO as write a blog post, pitch a reporter, throw some stuff on social, and boost a post with whatever budget crumbs are left. And if that's the case, then yes, that version is outdated. It should be. It was never strategic enough for how modern marketing actually works. And it sure as heck wasn't built for a world where discovery happens through AI summaries, zero-click search, creator commentary, screenshots, reviews, and recommendations long before someone ever lands on your website, if they do at all. But that is not what the PESO model is now. The model evolved because the market did. The PESO Model Certification was rebuilt because discovery changed, trust changed, visibility changed, and the way we plan, create, distribute, and measure our work had to change right along with it. Which means the modern PESO model is no longer just a tidy little framework for organizing tactics across paid, earned, shared, and owned media. It's an operating system. It's how you make your content work harder. It's how you use owned and earned as a visibility engine instead of two teams politely ignoring each other on opposite sides of the org chart. It is how you use paid and shared to create momentum instead of flinging messages into the void and calling it distribution. It's how you integrate the entire thing so your channels stop fighting for attention and start compounding results. And it's how you measure what matters so your reporting can drive decisions instead of serving as decorative PowerPoint filler. AI did not make the PESO model irrelevant. It made bad marketing easier to spot. When discovery happens without a click, when trust is built through repetition and corroboration, and when both humans and machines are trying to figure out whether you're worth paying attention to, the answer is not more content for content's sake. The answer is not louder promotion. The answer is not random acts of marketing dressed up as strategy. The answer is a system, a real one that aligns what you say, what others say about you, where that proof shows up, how it gets amplified, and whether any of it is actually moving the business. That is what modern PESO is built to do. So no, the question is not whether the PESO model has evolved. It has. On this week's SpinSucks podcast episode, we're going to discuss whether you're still arguing with an old mental model while your competitors get on with it, or if you're ready to evolve.
If you're a communications pro who works hard, doesn't compromise quality, and gets the job done, welcome home. We'll share our tips, tricks, and stories, and together we will change the face of PR. Spin sucks, but we don't. With the Spin Sucks podcast, here's Gini Dietrich.
Welcome back to the SpinSucks podcast. I'm Gini Dietrich. Before we get started, I have a little tidbit for you. Did you know that if you can't finish watching right now, you can subscribe to the audio version of the show? We're on all the platforms where you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple, or you can subscribe to our newsletter at spinsucks.com. For years, marketing teams have gotten away with looking busy. A campaign here, a media hit there, a blog post no one repurposes, a social calendar full of engagement posts, some paid support tossed on top when numbers look soft. Then everyone meets once a month to admire a dashboard full of impressions and pretend that means something important happened. That game is a lot harder to play now because AI did not invent a new trust problem. It just exposed the one that was already there. When someone can ask a tool about your company, your category, your product, your competitors, your point of view, and get an answer without ever visiting your website, it becomes painfully obvious whether you have built real authority or whether you've just been producing a lot of content and hoping proximity counts as strategy. This is the part where some marketers get twitchy and start blaming AI for everything, as if ChatGPT personally snuck into their Google Analytics and broke their traffic. But AI is not the villain here. It is the flashlight, and it is shining directly on the cracks that were already there. Misaligned messaging, siloed teams, random acts of content, earned media that never gets reused, social channels that say one thing while the website says another. paid programs amplifying messages that have not earned the right to scale, and reporting that tells you what happened after the fact, but what not to do next. This is not a channel problem. This is not a platform problem. This is not even an AI problem. That is a systems problem. And that is exactly why the PESO model matters more now, not less. Because the brands that will win in this environment are not the ones screaming the loudest. They're the ones sending the clearest, most consistent, most corroborated signals across everything they do. They are the one who's owned content since something useful, whose earned coverage reinforces credibility, whose shared media moves that proof through networks and communities, whose paid media accelerates what's already working, and whose measurement helps them improve instead of just reporting on the wreckage. In other words, they are the ones operating like a system. This is what so many people miss when they dismiss PESO as old news. They are arguing with the kindergarten version. They are still imagining a neat little acronym used to organize a tactical plan. Meanwhile, the market has moved on to a world where visibility is shaped by repetition, consistency, corroboration, and proof. Humans need that. AI systems need that. Your executives need that. Your buyers definitely need that. Let's be honest. Some of the criticism of PESO is fair, not the it hasn't evolved part. That's lazy. But the part where people think PESO is just a nicer way to say do a little bit of everything. Fair enough, because for a long time, that is how plenty of people treated it. They took the acronym, turned it into a checklist, and called it a strategy. Write a blog post, pitch some media, schedule some social posts, throw money behind whatever seems to be getting attention, repeat until everyone is too tired to ask where any of it is actually working. That is not PESO. That is just running a list of tactics from each media type and calling it a day. The old version of doing PESO deserved to die because it was built for a world where teams could still get away with working in silos and calling it specialization. Your audience does not care how your org chart is structured. They do not experience your brand in paid, earned, shared, and owned buckets. They experience one impression that becomes another, then a recommendation, then a review, then a click, maybe trust if you're lucky, and the story holds together. That is why the old way breaks. Disconnected work takes more effort, wastes more money, creates more internal friction, and produces less trust. It relies on constant reinvention instead of strategic repetition. It confuses activity with progress, and it leaves teams vulnerable every time a platform changes, a leader panics, a budget gets cut, or a shiny new tool shows up and promises to solve all of their problems with one magical prompt. So, this is exactly why the modern PESO model matters. It is not a tidy acronym for organizing tactics. It is an operating system. Owned media is your source of truth. Earned media is your corroboration, your third-party credibility, somebody else saying the same things you are about your brand. Shared media moves the signal. Paid media accelerates what's already working, and integration is what makes the whole thing compound instead of splinter. That is the evolution that people miss when they say PESO hasn't evolved. They think updating PESO for AI means adding faster tools or more content velocity. It doesn't. It means changing the way the work fits together so your message, your proof, your distribution, your amplification, and your measurement all support one another. In a market shaped by AI summaries, zero-click discovery, reviews, screenshots, podcasts, creator commentary, and recommendations, visibility is no longer about showing up once in the right place. It's about showing up consistently across many places in a way that makes your expertise easier to discover, your credibility easier to verify, and your message easier to trust. That is a systems job, and systems are exactly why the modern PESO model is built to solve. This is where certification matters, not because you get a badge, even though it's fun to have a badge, I will admit, not because it looks nice on LinkedIn, even though it does look nice on LinkedIn, not because I enjoy assigning homework, because I actually do enjoy assigning homework. It matters because knowing about PESO and knowing how to run it are not the same thing. Pros who hold the PESO model certification understand how to start from a source of truth. They know how to create assets that do more than one job. They know how to build proof instead of just promotion. They know when paid is making the work smarter and when it's covering up weak strategy. They know how to measure against business movement instead of platform activity. In other words, they know how to make the system move. Anyone can say integration. Anyone can slap the acronym on a slide. Anyone can use AI to crank out 12 social posts and call it modern marketing. The advantage goes to the people who know how to build visibility, trust, and momentum on purpose. That is what the PESO Model Certification teaches. The PESO model was not rebuilt for a moment. It was rebuilt for a market that will keep changing. AI will evolve, search will evolve, platforms will evolve, measurement will evolve, and the teams that pull ahead will not be the ones waiting for everything to settle down before they get serious about integration. They will be the ones building systems that can adapt. That is why the PESO model matters, not because it has evolved, but because it shows the model is foundational to how modern marketing and communications work today. So no, I am not especially interested in debating whether or not the PESO model has evolved. It has. The real question is whether you have, or the person asking the question has, because knowing the acronym is not the same thing as knowing how to use it. One gives you familiarity, the other gives you capability. And in a market where discovery is fragmented, trust has to be reinforced and visibility depends on consistency and proof. Capability is the thing that wins. The PESO model was built for this moment. The question is whether you are ready to use that way or not. And if you are, the PESO Model Certification will teach you how to stop talking about integration and start building it. If you'd like to learn more about the PESO model and its certification, join us in the SpinSucks community. It's a great place to get advice, brainstorm ideas, and build real relationships with your peers. You can find us at spinsucks.com/community. That's spinsucks.com/community. And make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. We're posting tips, how-tos, cheat sheets, and more every week. I'll see you next week. Bye.